how's it going? It's Sean Bradshaw from cyberfret.com, and in this lesson we're going to take a look at some skeleton dominant 7th chords. And so what we're going to do is look at some voicings for dominant 7th chords, small, just 3 strings, just the bare bone essence of the chord, rather than playing big old bar chords or anything like that. So basically we're going to have 2 different voicings for this skeleton dominant 7th chord. One with the root on the 6th string and one with the root on the 5th string. So let's take a look at the root on the 6th string chord first. And the one that I was playing over a blues in the key of G, and so let's take a look at the 1 chord, which would be a G7 chord. A couple of different ways that you can finger this. One way is put your 2nd finger on the 6th string at the 3rd fret, your 3rd finger on the 4th string at the 2nd fret, and then your pinky on the 3rd string at the 4th fret. So just those 3 notes. And if you know anything about music theory, what's going to happen is that note that's on the 6th string is going to be the root, G. The note that's on the 4th string is the flat 7 of the chord, and the note that's on the 3rd string is the 3rd of the chord. And in essence, what that flat 7 means, if I was to play a G major scale and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, take that 7th note and lower it by a half step, flat 7, that's what that is. And the 3 is the 3rd note of the major scale, 1, 2, 3, up in that octave. Quick music theory there. So we have root, flat 7, and 3. Now, a dominant 7th chord is actually made up of 4 different notes. We have a root, a 3rd, a 5th, and the flat 7. And with this particular skeleton chord, what I'm doing is I'm actually leaving out the 5th. The 5th is probably the least important note of any chord, except for a power chord, which is just the root and the 5th. All right. The 5th doesn't really give any chord any character, and so it's a lot of times one that you can leave out, and especially as you're kind of paring down and making smaller chord voicings, the 5th is kind of the first one to go. Now, another fingering that you can use for this chord is to use your 1st, 2nd, and 3rd fingers. And when you're playing this, you have to work on muting the other strings. And so what I'm doing is I'm very lightly touching the 5th string. With this particular fingering, I'm actually taking my 2nd finger and very lightly touching that 5th string using what I call the lazy finger mute. I'm letting the 2nd finger be a little lazy and kind of fall over onto that 5th string. And then for actually the 2nd string, I'm letting my pinky kind of fall over and touch that, and really the 1st string, my 1st finger over here is very lightly touching that. All right. Now, for the root on the 5th string voicing, what's going to happen is I'm going to take my 2nd finger, I'm going to play this as a C7. I'm going to put my 2nd finger on the 5th string at the 3rd fret. My 1st finger is going to go on the 4th string at the 2nd fret. And my 3rd finger is going to go on the 3rd string at the 3rd fret. So this is a skeleton C7 chord. And in this case, what happens is I have my root there on the 5th string, C. Then this note that's on the 4th string is the 3rd, and then here on that 3rd string is the flat 7. So I still just have a root, a 3rd, and a flat 7, but the order of the notes is different than it was here. For the root on the 6th string, we had root, flat 7, and then 3 in the higher octave. And for this one, we're going to have root, 3 in the lower octave, and then flat 7. So for the whole kind of blues in the key of G that I was playing, I'm doing the G7 here, C7 here, and then D7 would be up 2 frets, same fingering as the C7. Now, we can even break this down further and get even more skeleton. I said that the 5th was the least important note of the chord, and if I had to do away with another note in this already broken down skeleton chord, the one that I would leave off is actually the root. And while you may say, well, gosh, the root's the most important note, isn't it? Well, what if you have a bass player playing with you? The bass player is taking care of that low sound. So if you're just trying to give the sound of a G7 chord in its most skeleton form, I might play just those 2 notes, just getting the flat 7 and the 3rd in there, while the bass player takes care of playing the root. All right. And so the fingering, if I'm just going to be playing the skeleton, a lot of times I'll use my 1st and 3rd fingers. You most certainly could use your 1st and 2nd, or any combination of fingers depending on where you're going and where you came from. So that's what I would play for the G7 chord as even more stripped down. Now, for the C7, we had this, and if we leave out the root, you'll see what I'm left with if I take out the root C is basically the same shape. So I have this for the G7, which is flat 7 and 3, but if I take that and just move it down 1 fret, same shape, but what happens is now the bottom note is 3 and the top note is the flat 7. And so then if I wanted the D7, that's just up 2 frets from where that is. And so I have G7, C7, D7. So now watch me play along with the jam track just using that bare bones 2-note chord. Now, just to show you one little thing, extra thing here is, if I go back to the G7 chord, the skeleton of a chord, this time I am going to play it with my 1st, 2nd, and 3rd fingers. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pinky and play the 5th fret on the 2nd string. That chord is actually a G7 with an added tension, it's called 13. Right, if I played a major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's basically where that's coming from. All right. You can basically just think of it as a fancier G7. All right. Sometimes referred to as a G13 chord. But what I have is the skeleton G7, adding in that extra note, the 13. Right? It gives a little jazzier sound. Now I'm going to take the C7 chord that we have, the skeleton. What I'm going to do is add 1 note on the 2nd string here. This is a C7 chord with an added 9. Again, if I play a C major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's where that's coming from. So I have a C7 with an added 9, or I have sometimes what people refer to as a C9 chord. So it just shows you how you can take these skeleton chords and kind of jazz them up a little bit by just adding 1 note on top. All right, so have fun playing your new dominant 7th skeleton chords. Play around with trying to break them down even further, playing just the 2 strings, and then expand them a little bit by playing the 13th and the 9th that I showed you. Have a good one.